Now you're about to enter a realm where the ropes of reality blur and a squared circle becomes the ultimate truth. Welcome to a podcast where the hosts dare to believe that every slam and every rivalry and every triumph inside the ring is as real as it gets. Step into a mysterious world where backstage whispers are mere echoes, and the scripted drama unfolds as part of real life. Get ready for a journey where disbelief is suspended and the spectacle is nothing short of surreal. They are the Mics on Mics, and this is Drive By Wrestling, and we are about to enter the kayfabe zone.
Welcome. I'm Mike J. He's Mike S. We with the Mics on Mics. This is Drive By Wrestling Kayfabe Zone. Mike, it's been a different new week for me. So much so that I am dedicated to all 10 of you that listen to us. And I got up an extra hour early, unneeded, for work just to record this show. So you're going to deal with me eating a bagel while I do this.
Unneeded. You'll deal with the bagel. Unneeded. Deal with the bagel.
How was Sonic Temple?
Slaughter to Prevail is the best band in the world, and I'm not going to debate it.
Wow. All right.
The lead singer on the breakdown for the last song, as it was coming up, he's like, if you guys get real quiet, I'll do something cool. So we all got real quiet, and then the breakdown hit, and he put the microphone down, and you could still hear him doing his gutturals over the music.
That's wild.
It's fucking the craziest thing. It was insane. It was nuts. Anyway, Slipknot, Pantera, great as usual. Sleep
Right.
Token puts on a good show, even though it's not like my thing, but it's a good show. Kitty and Soulfly still got it. Kitty especially still has it. Soulfly never lost it, but like Kitty
Right.
stopped being a band.
Right.
But like Kitty got it. Kitty like it's cool as shit. It's nice to see them and be like, oh wow, Kitty. They still got it going. Yeah, man, Mudvayne was the shit as usual, and yeah, that's about it. Pretty much it. Yeah.
Seemed like a good time. Followed your videos, of course, and sat at home with my children with slight jealousy towards you, but
It's all right,
it is what
man.
it is.
It's all right, man. You're gonna have someone to take care of you when you're older.
Hopefully, or they just put me in a home. Either way, I'll be taken care of. Let's on our end take care of some business, Mike, and get into what is a big weekend in pro wrestling, specifically WWE. King and Queen of the Ring. Adding that Queen really threw me off there. Taking place in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. See what they did there. This will air.
I do now.
This will air Saturday for us live. I believe at 1 on the East Coast. I will maybe get to watch it live. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. It's just going to depend. T-ball, Pinto, Little League, all day Saturday. Should be fun. Anyway, we've got what looks like 5 matches listed for this, and we're going to talk about them. We will start out with, and one we don't even know We don't really know the King and Queen of the Ring finals because SmackDown has yet to happen as of this recording. So we'll touch on them in a minute. Let's go with this. Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable versus Bronson Reed. Triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship. Chad Gable's been kind of a dick, hasn't he?
A bit of a motherfucker.
Right?
A bit of a motherfucker, I would say.
Very rude to his Alpha Academy teammates. Not very Master Gable-esque, if you ask me. He needs his attitude adjusted, and not by John Cena. Sami Zayn could do it. Bronson Reed, he's a monster.
Not opposed to it happening by John Cena, though.
Well, no, never would be.
Like
I do now have a John Cena figure mounted in front of my car, so there's that. Yeah, this man, Sami's got the odds stacked against him, in my opinion, in this match. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I mean, in a triple threat like this, champion's always got a huge disadvantage.
Absolutely. Don't have to be pinned to lose.
So, you know, it's not looking good for him, but Sami Zayn is known to be one to rise above.
He is kind of the ultimate underdog, isn't he?
He is. So, you can't exactly rule him out.
You certainly cannot. And then, like I said, Bronson Reed's a monster, but always, this is going to sound rude, but seems to find a way to come up short, right? So, as much as you can watch him destroy people, and he definitely has a size advantage in this triple threat match. If there's two people that could take advantage of Bronson Reed sometimes coming up short, it is definitely Chad Gable and Sami Zayn, if that makes sense.
I would be real. I'm not even sure how Bronson Reed got in this fucking match. Like,
because he beat Sami Zayn.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so and then he kind of said, "Hey, I beat him. I should have a title shot," which logically makes sense. I get it. He might have won with a distraction, but I get it. So we'll give it to him on that, and let's do this. Let's roll in to, well, who do you think? Let's do picks. Who do you take? I know it's kind of up in the air. It's definitely a disadvantage for Sami on the being able to be pinned and not be pinned and lose your title, but Sami retain, we get a new IC champ.
I think Sami retains. I just think Sami's gonna pull it out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sami has what it takes. I think Sami's gonna hold this title for a good while, and Sami's gonna be Intercontinental Champion, probably going into SummerSlam for sure. I'm taking Sami as well. Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan, Women's World Championship. Becky, of course, our champion. Rhea's out injured. Becky won the Battle Royal to become Women's World Champion. Liv Morgan on her revenge tour. Also kind of being a dick. We got a lot of interesting characters right now in WWE that are maybe doing 180s on who they have been into who they are now. Liv Morgan, vicious, conniving, I think is a good word, kind of underhanded at some of the things she's been doing or the way that she's been doing them. I don't know if that means she has what it takes to take down the man.
Oh, I'm Becky Lynch. Yes, I is.
Becky, you're here today.
Yeah, it's been a while. Oh,
Hooker Pirate, Becky Lynch, everybody.
I'll take her down and keeps me belts, I will, good sirs.
Are you preventing the scurvy?
You got to eat your limes. It prevents the scurvy.
I eat my limes with a side of Corona.
Yeah. Yeah, on this show, Becky Lynch sounds like a fucking white, trashy British woman from the turn of the century. And not the most recent turn of the century, the one before that. Man, I don't know, dude. I think, like, both of them need to win. I think.
I mean,
Liv, especially if she wants to continue this revenge tour, she definitely needs to. Becky, just to kind of solidify this most recent title run, needs to. I
say,
think Becky probably pulls it out, but who knows?
yeah, I mean, in needs to win categories, I feel like Liv is more in the she needs to win this because she's been kind of playing that game and talking that trash and being the conniving one, and she needs to. I mean, if she wants to continue this quote unquote revenge tour, right? Like she has to win. I mean, Becky will always be a top tier talent in WWE and will always have the ability to win and be a champion at just about the drop of a hat, right? Like
For now.
She's got that resume. So, even when someone gets injured and they don't have a number one contender, they could throw a Becky Lynch at a title or, in a title match, kind of like how she got, not that she didn't deserve to be in a battle royal, but you get what I mean, and she won it. Like she has the ability to do that. She has become good enough to do that and be a top player in this game. But Liv is, a different animal right now. She's in a different position than we've ever seen her in, and it will be interesting. I think I'm going to go with the shocker here, Mike. I think Liv takes this title off of her.
I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay no matter how it shakes out.
It seems like people forget. How do I want to word this? Forget the pretty dominant run as a SmackDown Women's Champion that Liv had. What, 2 years ago, leading into not this past WrestleMania, but the WrestleMania before.
Do you want to know why people? Do you want to know why people forgot about it, man?
Sure.
Because it was utterly forgettable.
Well, but that wasn't Liv's fault. That wasn't Liv's fault.
Come on,
they didn't.
that was good.
They weren't giving her title, major title defenses. The roster was depleted at the time with injury, and it seems to have been rebuilt. So it'd be interesting, and maybe she can't handle that. I don't know. Maybe she can't handle the type of women that are on Raw right now that will be nipping at her heels, and maybe she'll be another transitional champion. Who knows? But we'll have to see. But I'm gonna go outside the box here, Mike. I'm gonna take Liv Morgan.
Right on, man. You might have convinced me.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, let's talk about the king and queen of the ring, Mike. Let's go first into the women, since we're talking women currently. So we don't have the final SmackDown participant, but it will be Lyra Valkyria on the Raw side, taking on the winner of Nia Jax and Bianca Belair, which will take place on SmackDown Friday night, which will happen after we record this. So, sorry. We're going to first pick. I'm taking Bianca Belair. She's beating Nia Jax. She's the better of the two. She's the more complete of the two. Even though she's physically smaller, she's the stronger of the two. And I just think she's going to handle Nia Jax and move on to the finals. Your opinion?
Anyone but Nia, huh?
I mean, I don't particularly hate Nia. I think she's better now than she was in the past, I guess we'll just say. She's improved in her abilities, question mark. But I don't think she can handle Bianca Belair. I just don't. I don't think there's many women on this roster that can handle Bianca Belair, which will be an interesting question in the Queen part of this, Mike.
So you're
So
predicting Bianca wins the whole thing.
I didn't say that. We're gonna talk about that. So
Dark horse. I'm going with Lyra.
okay, well, see, that's where I was getting to. If you paid attention to the tournament, and I know that you haven't been 100% up on the last couple episodes, so let me walk you through this. It almost looked like we might get Bianca versus her tag team partner, Jade Cargill, but she got disqualified, leading Nia to win that match. Kind of got baited in by Nia Jax, which Nia's good at. Bianca's been kind of nursing a knee thing through this tournament. I'm trying to think of what match. I think it started in the Tiffany Stratton match, and then no, I think it actually started in the Candice LeRae match, which was the first one, and then Tiffany almost got the better of her, but didn't, and now she takes Nia, and I think she'll take out Nia. I wouldn't be shocked to see Nia get angry after that and possibly target that knee even more. And I think, I'm not saying that has to happen for it to be a factor, but I'm saying Lyra Valkyria has had a absolutely spectacular rise quickly on Raw and in this tournament. And from everything that I've seen, pretty clean through the tournament without anything major happening injury-wise. So we will seemingly be getting a 100% Lyra Valkyria, 6 days post her Raw match to a possibly 80%, we'll just guess, Bianca Belair, who will be 1 day post her match. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do. This is actually like really good commentary on this situation. I don't think a lot of people are really looking at is that it's gonna be
it's almost a disadvantage.
Less than 24 hours for the winner of SmackDown, 6 days.
For the winner. So Raw has an advantage on both sides. And that's another thing too, like, that I will kind of, I don't want to say dislike or tear down about this tournament, but back in the day, Mike, you will recall, fans, if you're new to wrestling, you may not, will let me and Mike feed you like baby birds. The King of the Ring used to be like after qualifiers, like one tournament. So the stars could have possibly 2 to 3 matches to win the King of the Ring in one show. So they'd wrestle.
It took 3 matches to win.
Yeah, that's what I think. There was qualifier, then the final 3 matches were all on the King of the Ring pay-per-view. So things like getting hurt in a match previously were immediate factors because there wasn't even healing time. You might have 30 to 40 minutes between matches, and then you're going back out there and wrestling again. So I like that format a little better. I get that, we want to make sure that they rest and get a little bit of rested time in between. But again, it's kind of not fair to SmackDown when their roster has to do it the night before, and the Raw roster has 5, 6, however you want to look at it, days to heal up before they take that main, finals match for the King and Queen of the Ring. But I guess, hey, you're a professional, you got to rise above it, right? But that said, I'm taking the shocker with you, Mike. I'm taking Lyra Valkyria. I think she becomes Queen of the Ring. I think that she is on a meteoric rise, and I think that, I'll tell you this, Triple H announced that whoever wins King and Queen of the Ring get a opportunity at the title SummerSlam, which I like. It makes us even more meaningful. And that said, either way, let's just say Lyra wins and Becky wins. Lyra's already beaten Becky for the NXT Women's Championship. And let's say Liv wins. Lyra and Becky. Becky's like Lyra's hero, both from Ireland. So who else to go get revenge of her own? See what I did there on Liv Morgan. If Liv Morgan were to beat Becky Lynch. So, I mean, I know that this is all real, but like story-wise, it would be a beautiful written, story. We'll see how life plays it out. But I'm just throwing that out there, Mike.
Yeah, look, Lyra and Tiffany Stratton are the future of this division.
100%.
Just shit is gonna happen. Okay, like they're going to win a lot of things, and this Queen of the Ring is just the beginning.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. King of the Ring on the men's side, we have Gunther from Raw, which Gunther and 6 Days of Heel is just not even fair, right? But that said, I don't look for this finals match on SmackDown to go super long. I could be wrong, but we got Randy Orton versus Tama Tonga. We got the Bloodline here, Mike. We know how that goes. It's hard for me to bet against the Bloodline. It's always hard to go against Randy Orton, fair. But when the Bloodline's involved, it's almost impossible to bet against them. And Roman might be MIA, and supposedly Solo calling the shots from wherever. But I'm just saying. Either way, the Bloodline seems to be in a pretty firm position, and I think Tama beats Orton, and then Tama Gunther. Gunther is a large mountain to climb, but again, we have the Bloodline.
Gunther, at the very least, has it's Giovanni.
Not anymore. It's Ludwig.
Ludwig, yeah. So he's at least got a body that can kind of counter. I don't know, man. I don't think that Ludwig, and I say this as like a Ludwig fan. Listen to the show. Go way back.
Yep.
I'm a Ludwig fan.
Yep.
I don't think he is enough to counter Solo and Tonga Loa.
Well, that's the thing. Yep, that's the thing. And whoever else might crawl out of the woodwork to join the Bloodline, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, who knows who could show up at any moment. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. I still think Gunther takes the whole tournament, though. It's not enough.
I get it.
From that.
I get it. Listen, I'm not as clear cut. Like, I really think Lyra Valkyria is going to win. Like, 70-30. I'm more like 60-40 with this, with Tama, just because it's Gunther, but it's Bloodline. You know what I mean? See where I'm coming with this? But, and then you go into that, man, like Tama last week on SmackDown before his match in the back. You know what the fuck was coming out of his mouth, but it almost sounded like he wanted to eat someone. I mean, like straight up murder and eat. Oh my God, I didn't do that.
What's that?
Why do you gotta say weird shit?
What's that?
Oh no. I mean,
what is that kind of noise? Something annoying is going on here. So
you heard how horrible that story was last week, right?
Yeah, I heard that because I was listening to the fucking podcast at the gym.
Oh, I just did it. There's no way he doesn't come in for that.
That shit came on at the fucking gym. It was terrifying. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Look, I will say this. This is very well researched and very well said.
Amazing, but terrifying. And
But
there's
man,
no way we roll without him popping in about cannibalism or something. I
how
just
am
mentioned
I
it.
supposed to sleep? And great,
Uh,
here we are. Cool.
oh, shit.
Are you happy with yourself? Are you proud?
I'm not.
No, no one is. No
No.
one's happy right now.
We need to
So,
get that man.
so
We need to get that man a show.
yeah. So guys, I guess it's probably gonna I'm probably gonna get cut off midway through this fucking sentence when some Bavarian dude's gonna take over because we have no control over anything here anymore.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I heard you. Of course I did. And you're absolutely right. I'm taking over here with some pretty fucked up shit right now. So, hello, my dear Drive-By Wrestling in the Kayfabe Zone podcast listeners. It's me again, Daniel, from the heart of Bavaria in Germany. No, not wearing lederhosen, but I'm having a beer right now. All right. So, first of all, I am so sorry. You know, I gave you this warning last week that it will get pretty heavy and maybe you shouldn't listen if you are not a fan of violence and all that and yada yada. Well, I'm sorry. Because I lied. That was nothing, actually. Nothing. Because compared to what I have in store for you today, thanks to the mics on mics, who always kind of find the best and heartwarming topics out there, but compared to today's little story, last week will actually sound more like a rom-com. Yeah, with the funny bearded guy and his many wives, produced by Disney, rated PG. So again, if you are not used to violence and blood and pretty bad stuff, well, the stuff that human beings are actually capable of doing, well, skip this part of the show. And don't sue us. Again, don't. Me, especially, don't. Right? All right. So, Mike. Tama Tonga looked like he wanted to eat someone. Course. Sorry. I was listening to this other podcast while the mics did their thing, cannibalism. Great. What a nice topic. So why not? Well, cannibalism is far from as unusual as you would perhaps like to believe it to be. In fact, the chances are pretty high that you, the beloved listener of the Kayfabe Zone, that you are a cannibal yourself. Have you ever bitten your nails, or a little piece of skin around them, and maybe you sucked on your finger after cutting yourself with a knife? Congratulations. You are officially a cannibal. Yeah, this is called auto-cannibalism. And it is, in fact, a form of real cannibalism. There you go. The word cannibalism itself comes from the name that the Spanish gave to the Caribbean tribes. They accused them of ritualistically eating their enemies, but, modern-day scholars have doubts that it actually happened. In the natural world, Over 1,500 species have been recorded as engaging in cannibalism. So, yeah, it is rare in the animal kingdom, except when it isn't. The cane toad, for instance, actually prefers cane toad eggs to other options. And it's not unknown for bears to eat members of their own family. Chimpanzees do enjoy eating meat occasionally, and this primarily takes the form of eating newborn infants. It is thought that male chimps do this when they don't think they are the father. Sorry, Maury. And even your cute little pet hamster is capable of cannibalism. Mothers are known to sometimes eat their own newborn babies, both in captivity and in the wild. And in perhaps one of the best known examples of animal cannibalism, praying mantis females will often eat male mantises immediately after breeding. She will first bite off its head, then move on to consuming the rest of the body. This is known as sexual cannibalism, and it's not just practiced by mantises, but many other insects, of course, and arachnids, those damn spiders, too. Research has suggested that Neanderthals have engaged in cannibalism. Bones have been snapped in half, so possibly bone marrow was extracted for nutrition, and teeth marks on the bones showed that flesh was gnawed off. Throughout medieval and early modern Europe, human body parts, including flesh, fat, and blood, were treated as commodities, bought and sold as remedies to all kinds of illnesses and afflictions. The Romans drank the blood of gladiators as a cure against epilepsy, whilst powdered mummies were consumed as an elixir of life. Lotions made with human fat were supposed to cure arthritis, whilst popes and emperors tried to cheat death by drinking the blood of healthy young men. Unsurprisingly, well, they kind of failed. Then European soldiers were recorded to have consumed the flesh of Muslims on the First Crusade by multiple different eyewitness sources. Some believe this was an act of desperation because of famine, whilst others cited this as being a form of psychological power play. In other cases, such as in warfare, the losers were also eaten by the victors as a final insult. And the Aztecs, on the other hand, may have consumed human flesh as a means of communicating with the gods. In Africa, cannibalism has been linked to sorcery and believes that certain powers could be gained through the consumption of human flesh. There are various accounts from around the world mentioning women's breasts as a favorite body part. But among all the cannibal tribes, the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet were considered the tidbits of the body. Well, they still cooked it in fat from a woman's breast, though. So human corpses, like those of animals, were usually cut into pieces for further processing. But reports of people being roasted or baked whole are on record. At the dig site of Herxheim, Germany, more than 1,000 people were killed and eaten about 7,000 years ago. And the evidence indicates that many of them were spit roasted whole over open fires. In some cases, children were roasted and offered for sale by their own parents during the times of war and famine. But some of the most famous acts of cannibalism today have been acts of desperation. In 1816, the survivors of the sinking of the Méduse resorted to cannibalism after days adrift on a raft. And there's also the story of the Donner Party, who, attempting to cross the Sierra Nevada mountains in winter between 1846 and 1847, resorted to cannibalism after their food ran out. In 1972, some of the survivors of Flight 571, which crashed in the Andes, consumed the flesh of those who didn't survive the disaster. When word spread that survivors had eaten human flesh, there was a huge amount of backlash, despite the extreme nature of the situation they had found themselves in. In November 1820, the whaling ship Essex had found good hunting grounds in the Pacific, and the small boats were out hunting when an 85-foot sperm whale made directly for the Essex, ramming the ship twice and causing irreparable damage. The crew piled into the boats and left the sinking ship behind. When they were finally rescued, only 2 men remained. The men were crazed from their ordeal and barely registered that they were being rescued when the American whaler Dolphin showed up. They continued, sucking on bones as they drew near the ship. And when they were pulled aboard, they stuffed bones into their pockets. But what's even worse than all that? Well, maybe that some of the worst serial killers out there are also cannibals. Hamilton Howard Albert Fish, the Gray Man. His biggest trial was for the kidnapping and murder of Grace Budd. After kidnapping her, he strangled her to death, chopped her up, and ate her body within just 9 days. 6 years later, Fish taunted the innocent girl's family by sending a letter to them, graphically describing his crime and the pleasure he received committing it. Joachim Georg Kroll is definitely one of the worst cannibal serial killers in history. He found cannibalizing young children to be the most satisfying meals he's ever had. After murdering a 4-year-old girl, the neighbors were curious why the waste pipe was clogged. And when one neighbor asked Kroll if he knew what was stopping the pipes, he replied with guts. The pipes were actually blocked up by the young girl's intestines. Jeffrey Dahmer. Well, most of us know the story of Dahmer. He would usually lure young boys into his apartment, drug them before strangling them, and having sex with their corpses. Then he would dismember their bodies and sometimes eat them. If not, he'd store their parts in barrels and in his freezer. When the police arrived at his apartment, they discovered dismembered body parts everywhere, skeleton furniture, nude photos, deceased man, and a ton of body parts in the fridge. American drifter and serial killer Otis Elwood Toole would take his victims and cook them over a barbecue. And Andrei Chikatilo, a Soviet serial killer nicknamed the Butcher of Rostov. Chikatilo was an unusual serial killer who was actually driven by immense rage from his lifelong inability to perform sexual acts. He dismembered several of his victims and often removed women's uteruses and nipples, where he found a fondness to chew on them. Armin Meiwes, who met another man on an online cannibal fetish forum. They met up, attempted to cook and eat the victim's penis together, and then Meiwes killed the victim and kept parts of his body in the freezer for 10 months, eating a large portion of it. In 2000, housewife Catherine Knight stabbed her husband John. Then she hung his body from a hook in their living room, skinned him, decapitated him, and cooked parts of his body in a dish with potato, pumpkin, beets, zucchini, and cabbage. Then she put out 2 servings of John for his children, and they got home. Klara Mauerova. Well, she may take the prize for worst mother ever. When her sons were young boys, aged 10 and 14, she brought them into a cult that practiced cannibalism. Worse, though, than Forcing them to engage in the cult's practices was what she subjected them to at home. She put them through torture, sexual assault, regular beatings, and meals comprised of their own flesh, cut from their still alive bodies. And Joe Metheny, who after having a pretty bad childhood and being addicted to drugs for years, lost all balance when he broke up with his girlfriend and started committing murders, one after the other. He mixed the meat of sex workers he had killed with beef and pork and made meatballs, and started selling these meatballs at a small barbecue stall he opened on the side of the road. Now, during this time, none of the customers were aware that they were eating a human hamburger. Whenever he needed more special meat, he would kill prostitutes or a tramp. Just wonderful. Wonderful people, right? But you know me. Like last week, I want to tell you about the one guy, the one cannibal, that I really think is the worst of them all. Mike Tyson. And hey there, Jake Paul. You better beware, or Mike will eat your ear, and then Logan Paul has to sell so much Prime and to wrestle every single little fucked up house show just to make a living for both of you. And no, I'm of course kidding. There is one cannibal who almost shouldn't be referred to as a human being. And I'm here to tell you all about him. At 4 foot, 9 inches tall, he might not look threatening. But when he murdered, dismembered, and devoured a young woman in 1981, he was fulfilling a dream, 32 years in the making. Issei Sagawa was born month early in Kobe, Japan on April 26, 1949. He was reportedly small enough to fit in the palm of his father's hand and almost died before his mother could give birth to him. His family was wealthy and successful, and he had a younger brother with whom he was very close. Sagawa almost immediately developed enteritis, which is a disease of the small intestine. For most of his life, he had to live with abdominal pain, cramping, diarrhea, dehydration, fever, vomiting, and weight loss. So he was always short and skinny, with legs that looked like pencils, and he believed that he was too repulsive to attract the kind of physical intimacy that would have tempered his desires. And for as long as he can remember, he possessed cannibalistic urges and a fascination with eating human flesh. Sagawa became fascinated with fairy tales that involved humans being eaten, and his favorite was Hansel and Gretel. While in first grade, he stared at another male student's thigh and suddenly thought, that looks delicious. Issei Sagawa's fascination with cannibalism developed a sexual component, and he began fantasizing about eating women's flesh. He developed an attraction to tall Western women. Sagawa did once attempt to see a psychiatrist for his urges at age 15, but he found it unhelpful and retreated further into his fantasies. In 1972, while living in Tokyo at the age of 24, he became attracted to a tall German woman, and when he met this woman in the street, all he could think about was eating her. So he just impulsively decided to follow her back to her apartment and broke in by climbing through her window while this woman was sleeping. Sagawa intended on slicing off a piece of her buttocks and sneaking away with it to eat later, but She woke up and started screaming, which caused him to flee. He was arrested by the police and charged with attempted rape. But he kept this true motive of cannibalism to himself. Sagava's wealthy father offered the young woman money if she dropped the attempted sexual assault charges against his son, so Sagava was never prosecuted for the crime. Then, in 1977, 5 years after his failed attempt at cannibalism in Tokyo, 28-year-old Issei Sagawa moved to Paris to study languages and literature at the prestigious Paris Sorbonne University. Once there, his urges took over. Almost every night he would lure sex workers home and then try to shoot them from behind. It became less about wanting to eat them, but more an obsession with the idea that he simply had to carry out this ritual of killing a girl, no matter what. But he just couldn't do it. Eventually, he found the perfect victim. And in 1981, after repressing his desires for 32 years, he finally acted on them. Sagawa met 25-year-old Dutch student Renee Harteveld. Renee was a tall, blonde, beautiful Northern European woman, and when Sagawa sat next to her in class, he felt instantly in love and could not stop thinking about the white skin of her arms. She spoke 3 languages and had a bright future with the aim of getting a PhD in French literature. Sagawa asked her to teach him German, and since his father was pretty wealthy, he could pay her pretty well, so she accepted. Over time, Sagawa struck up a friendship with her, occasionally inviting her to his home for dinner, and at some point, he gained her trust. He wrote her love letters and took her to concerts and exhibits. According to him, she liked his obvious intelligence and ability to discuss everything from Impressionist paintings to Shakespeare to European literature. Sagawa, however, became obsessed with thoughts of eating his new friend's flesh. So, he purchased a .22 caliber rifle, intending to murder Harteveld and cannibalizing her body. Harteveld visited Sagawa at his apartment to have dinner and practice German, and while the young Dutch student was reading poetry, Sagawa crept up behind her with the weapon. The rifle misfired, and it only made him even more hysterical. And he knew that he simply had to kill her. But not today. After she left, he smelled and licked the place where she had sat. On June 11th, 1981, Sagawa invited Renee again for dinner, and he was fully prepared to carry out his ultimate fantasy. They sat on the floor together, Japanese style, to drink tea, and into her drink, Sagawa put some whiskey to make her more compliant. He waited for the whiskey to have its effect. Then he told Renee that he loved her and wanted to take her to bed. She told him no way, no. He just nodded to her, got up to get a book of poetry. Sagawa handed the poem to Renee to read and started a recorder. While she recited the poem in German, Sagawa came up from behind her with the rifle and shot her in the back of the neck. Harteveld was killed instantly. She fell off the chair, and he was surprised about how quiet it suddenly was. He thought about calling an ambulance for a split second, but then thought, don't be stupid. You have been dreaming about this for 32 years, and now it's actually happening. Then he noticed the amount of blood that that was coming out of her neck wound, and at first he attempted to clean it up, but then he fainted at the sight of her pooling blood. He awoke a few minutes later with the realization that he now had to carry out his plan. Issei Sagawa raped her corpse and touched her hip while wondering where he should bite first. He chose her right buttock, but found it too difficult to bite into. His teeth weren't sharp enough just to bite into somebody and get a piece of flesh off like that. He left the apartment and purchased a butcher knife. And he used it to cut off the tip of her left breast and a small piece of her nose and ate them raw. Then Sagawa cut into her buttock. He was surprised that it wasn't just regular meat. He thought it would look like cutting it to a steak. All he saw was the fat beneath the skin, and it looked like yellow corn. Sagawa bent down to smell it and found that it had no odor, so he cut deeper. It took a while to actually reach the red meat. He tore a chunk of it with his fingers and threw it into his mouth. He felt it melting in his mouth like raw tuna. Sagawa proceeded to eat pieces of Harteveld's flesh, and he said he experienced sexual pleasure while cannibalizing her corpse. He laid out strips of flesh to store for later and ate a few more pieces raw. Then he made a meal of fried human flesh with mustard. As he cooked and ate more of her remains, he listened to the recording he made of her reading the poem. When he was finished, he used her underwear as a napkin to wipe his mouth, and then returned to her body, cut off her breast, and baked it. He disliked its greasy consistency. He found that he preferred her thighs. Once he was tired and full, he took what was left of the corpse to his bed and slept with it. The next day, finding that the body did not smell yet, he continued to try parts of it. He chewed her arm that he was so attracted to, all the way from her underarm to her elbow. Sagawa was curious about a few of the body parts that seemed more repulsive to him, so he cut out her anus and put it into his mouth. But the smell was too bad, and he spit it out. He tried frying it, but that failed to get rid of the odor, so he gave up on that. Then he swallowed her clitoris whole, due to her being on her period at the time, and him not liking the smell of menstrual blood. Sagawa consumed huge parts of Harteveld's body, eating most of her breasts, face, buttocks, feet, thighs, and neck, while saving other parts in his refrigerator. He also took photographs while dissecting her corpse. By the afternoon, several large flies began to swarm around the corpse. So Sagawa took that as a sign that he should stop eating her and dispose of the body. He used a hatchet to chop her up into little pieces that would fit into suitcases that he'd bought for this purpose. But as he dismembered her, he was getting excited, so he used her hand to masturbate with. Then he chewed on her nose again and cut her lips off and stored them in his fridge for later. The final piece he wanted was her tongue. He couldn't open her lower jaw, but he managed to reach in between her teeth. Sagawa cut it off, put it into his mouth, and watched himself chewing it in the mirror. Then he grabbed her head by the hair, hung it in front of him, looked in the mirror, and said out loud, What I truly wished was to eat her living flesh. Nobody will believe me, but my intention was to eat her, not to kill her. After placing Renee Harteveld's remains in the 2 suitcases, Segawa called a cab. The taxi driver helped him place the 2 heavy pieces of luggage in the vehicle. Surprised by the suitcase's weight, the cab driver jokingly asked Segawa if the bags contained a dead body, before driving him to Bois de Boulogne, a public park in Paris. There he dropped the luggage next to a trash can and simply walked away. 2 joggers, who saw blood dripping from the suitcases, soon discovered them and alerted the police. By this time, Harteveld's family had reported her missing. Members of law enforcement connected the suitcases to Segawa with the help of the cab driver who brought him to the park. When police arrived at his apartment 2 days after the murder with a search warrant, Segawa just let them in. They discovered the remains of a meal that included cooked human flesh, as well as a photo ID card belonging to Harteveld. When they opened the refrigerator, they found the pieces of her body, including her lips. Segawa freely confessed to what he had done and added that he had a history of mental illness. He considered himself weak, ugly, and small, and told the police he wanted to absorb her energy, so he had to kill her to eat her flesh. Issei Segawa was arrested and awaited his trial for 2 years in a French prison. With the help of a prominent attorney whom his father hired, the French courts determined he was legally insane and unable to stand trial. After spending 4 years in a mental institution, Segawa's lawyer convinced French authorities his client would be better treated in a Japanese facility. He was deported back to Japan in 1984 and immediately sent to Tokyo's Metropolitan Matsuzawa Hospital for evaluation and treatment. Japanese psychiatrists determined Segawa had a personality disorder, but he was not legally insane, meaning he could be held criminally responsible for the crimes he committed against Harteveld. But because the charges in France had been dropped, the court documents were sealed and couldn't be released to Japanese authorities. The Japanese had no case against Issei Segawa and no choice but to grant him his freedom in 1986. And so after spending 15 months in the Tokyo hospital, Issei Segawa simply checked himself out. He capitalized on his notoriety and the public's macabre interest in his crimes by writing a weekly column in a popular Japanese tabloid magazine and edited an anthology about cannibalism fantasies. He became something of a minor celebrity in Japan and appeared on numerous talk shows and made television appearances, including as a guest on a cooking show where he's eaten raw meat. Segawa wrote a manga novel that graphically depicts killing and eating Harteveld. Neither Segawa's nor Harteveld's family wanted him to publish the book, but it eventually became a bestseller. In 1992, Segawa appeared in Unfaithful Wife, Shameful Torture, a low-budget adult film that combines sex with extreme violence and murder. In the film, someone begins dismembering one of the women, and Segawa pretends to eat a portion of her flesh. To further support himself financially, Segawa has sold a number of paintings, many of them featuring nude or mutilated women. He wrote restaurant reviews for the Japanese magazine Spa and enjoyed success on a lecture circuit talking about his urges and crime. The fascination with the murder even saw it referenced by the Rolling Stones and the Stranglers in songs. And throughout his life, he has been chillingly unrepentant. He displayed no apparent sign of remorse, and the threat of life in prison hasn't done much to quell his urges. Segawa said that the desire to eat people becomes intense around June, when women start wearing less and showing more skin. And when he saw a girl on his way to the train station, he thought about wanting to eat someone again before he dies. He even planned out on he will do it. Either sukiyaki or shabu shabu, in order to really savor the natural flavor of the meat. In 2005, his parents died. He was prevented from attending their funeral, but repaid their creditors and moved into public housing. He received welfare benefits for a time. Suddenly, Segawa felt that being forced to make a living while being known as a murderer and a cannibal was a terrible punishment. In 2013, he was hospitalized for a cerebral infarction that permanently damaged his nervous system. He had 2 heart attacks in 2015, and in 2021, Segawa had to undergo a gastrostomy and could no longer eat. He lived out his final years with his brother after having a stroke during the surgery. And then finally, aged 73, Issei Segawa died of pneumonia on November 24, 2022, as a free man. There's something wrong here. Sorry again, that other damn podcast is still stuck in my brain. Well, wow, what a fun story, right? Right? Sure, you all are so glad that I'm here week after week to tell you about those fascinating things and, to make your weekends a little better. And don't worry, Mike. We can now return to your little wrestling show. Hope your breakfast that you were so professionally eating while recording stays in place after that. Yummy. Back to you guys. I hope you have a nice and clean, uplifting little wrestling story to tell after this, or whatever you do over there in Ohio. Bye. Talk to you soon, guys. Bye-bye. He's a man. He's a man. I'm sick. I don't know. Something's wrong with me.
So, yep, and I think really, I just think Tama has the edge here, Mike. I do. Anyway, so we'll see what happens, and I know we probably got derailed there for a minute by our Barbarian buddy, but I'm sure that he's rooting for Gunther, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably.
All right, let's talk about what I would assume will be the main event. Cody Rhodes defending his WWE championship against the U.S. champion, but that title's not on the line. Logan Paul. I've seen Logan Paul. Let me say this. We've talked about it on this show. An outsider, some would say fly by night I can't say that stuff. Like, this man has dedicated time and energy to learning this craft, and
Fly by night, trickster and swindler.
yep,
That's for you Chappelle Show people.
an interloper, some might say. But
An interloper.
yep, but I just think,
Snake oil salesman.
as much as we could maybe not like the guy,
False
it's
prophet.
hard to say that kind of thing, those kind of things about him. And
Wait, what?
huh?
No, I didn't say anything.
Okay, I said it's hard to say those kind of things about him
It's
and
hard.
not acknowledge the work that he's put in. The yes, he cheats a lot. I'll give him that. But the guy
Anything
can,
worth having is worth cheating to get.
yep, and the guy can wrestle, man. He just can. He can professional wrestle, and he has shown that he's not just a celebrity, being trying to be involved in professional wrestling for the benefit of his career. Like, he has made this part of his career. He's the damn US champion. So, that said, do I think Logan Paul is seasoned enough to come in here and defeat, I mean, let's call him what he is, a veteran. He's a veteran, Mike. In Cody Rhodes, I just don't think there's any chance that's happening.
I don't think he. Yeah, buddy. I just don't think he's got much of a chance against Cody. I just don't.
I mean, I think he will put up a good fight. He will try. I think Cody will. I mean, if we learn anything from past WrestleMania, Cody learns from his mistakes. He studied the tape. He had Roman beat 2 years ago, and Roman did Roman bloodline things and made sure that he kept that title. And Cody was better prepared for that kind of stuff this year and won. Okay. Cody's gonna study tape and see the way that Logan Paul does his dastardly things, and he's gonna be prepared for him. He's a student of the game. He's not gonna sleep on Logan Paul because he's Logan Paul. Like, he's gonna be ready, and he's gonna take Logan Paul apart the way that Cody can by studying what Logan Paul does, and he's going to retain this championship. And again, as I stated earlier, carry it into SummerSlam. That's my prediction.
That's it. That's a fair prediction. I agree with all that. Every word of it.
Yeah, and I think,
Not value to add.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I think overall, I think it's going to be a pretty solid show. I don't know if we'll get any additional matches added to the card. We'll just have to wait and see.
I'll tell you what we don't need. Buddy.
What's that?
We don't need superfluous tag matches on this. Like, what we don't need is like a Judgment Day 6-man tag.
Fair.
We don't need Shayna Baszler and what's her face having a tag match. Like, we just don't need certain things. There's something to be said for short and sweet PLEs. And this thing's called Clash of the Castle. Like, it ain't gotta be a fucking barn burner that goes for hours. You know what I mean?
This is King of the Ring.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah, my bad. My bad. Duh.
That
This is King
one's
of the
coming
Ring.
up,
This is
bro.
King of the Ring, man. This ain't fucking, you know, it's King of the Ring, man. Like, come on, let's be real. King of the Ring has real, like, fucking in your house vibes. It always has. It's a secondary PLE. We don't need to make this thing hours long. It's fucking Saturday afternoon. I'm trying to mow my grass. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's it's not SummerSlam, it's not WrestleMania. So, but that said, the last show, I can't even remember what the damn last PLE was. Oh, the one in France, Backlash. What we had, I think 5 or 6 matches, fantastic length. Every match, got to kind of stand on its own and mean a little more because we didn't have a bunch of matches thrown in there. So yeah, I agree with you. I like that. I like the shorter format. Um, you can fill with less commercials and you know hope that the matches go the length that they're allotted at least to for the entertainment of the fans, if nothing else. I mean, you never know what could happen. Match can just like MMA and boxing, a scheduled 30-minute match could last 2 minutes. You know what I mean? You just don't know what's going to happen. It's not like you can plan these things out, Mike. But I like the shorter format setup in the sense of, hey, we got a 5 match card. Let's see what happens. Let's go with it. It's more tolerable to the palate, I think, Mike,
Agreed.
than overstocking the match and maybe diluting the card in a way with matches that don't necessarily need to be on that card and can take place elsewhere, especially when you have 5 hours of television they can take place on. But yeah,
Whole lot of TV.
yep, absolutely. Speaking of TV, Mike, we didn't get to talk about it last week, so briefly before we wrap up, X-Men 97 finale. I need some nerd wisdom handed down to me from you.
Okay, what do you got questions about?
I just want to hear your thoughts.
Uh,
I know we talked offline about it, but let's get it on record and through voice instead of text.
Okay, so we're about to get Feral Wolverine, which
You mentioned before.
admittedly is like one of the lower points in the character's history. But I also personally feel like that's because they drug it out for too long.
Mm-hmm. I have a
Uh,
Wolverine question for you too, but go ahead.
like if this is like I can deal with like an 8 episode season of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't want more than that because then it'll start to feel like the comics, and it just got really drug out. Although I do think that this is probably going to ultimately finish like the comics, and he is going to get his adamantium back by Apocalypse and become the Horseman War for Apocalypse. I see that happening. Um, it looks like we're going to get a bit of the Ages of Apocalypse storyline. Now,
Right.
I want to clarify that's different than the Age of Apocalypse. The Age of Apocalypse is an alternate universe in which Professor Xavier was killed before creating the X-Men, allowing Apocalypse to take over the world, and Magneto ran the X-Men. The Ages of Apocalypse is a mini-series telling Apocalypse's origin story in ancient Egypt.
Okay.
So
I
I
like
think
it.
we're gonna get some of that.
Seems pretty
He's
clear that we're going to get some of that.
he's got the exact same look he does from the Ages of Apocalypse, the flashback
Nice.
that they showed.
Nice.
And
Yep.
then we got Scott and Jean zip into the future to be with baby Nate, which means we're going to get the adventures of Slim and Red. Slim is his nickname, as you know, Red being her nickname, also in the comics and on the cartoon. So they go to the future and they actually get a chance to like take care of baby Nathan for a period
I
of
like
time
it.
in the
I like
future,
it.
and they use the alias as Slim and Red while they're there, so no one. Well, I mean, like people kind of, and then you like you get to meet the Ascani, and you get to a little bit more about Rachel Summers, the alternate universe sister of Cable, also known as Phoenix, who made a brief cameo appearance in the season of X-Men '97. That's where I think everything's kind of gonna go. What's
Yeah,
your Wolverine question?
it seems like it. Okay, so this was something now, as you know, I don't know the audience knows.
Oh, also in regards to Wolverine, I definitely think we see fucking Sabretooth next season.
Yeah, clearly. I'm a diehard Wolverine fan, favorite X-Men.
Which by the way, it's 10 minutes. It's on YouTube. Search Logan the Wolf.
I heard about this. Yes, I have to watch it.
Okay, anyway, go ahead. Your Wolverine question.
So the cartoon, I was confused. I had to actually look up some things, but I want to ask, the expert, because I always remember growing up, and I read comics, but most of my Marvel knowledge, like the Spider-Man cartoon, X-Men, the animated, you know what I mean? Yep. And I got into I think when we were growing up, was it just the Uncanny X-Men?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
There's
of course,
Uncanny X-Men in the X-Men book. There's two. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Wolverine, the spin-off Wolverine comic, I read a lot of those. I never recall, I never got to Adamantium being ripped out, or I missed it in whatever series it was. And then it's that, I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase it. Anyway, obviously, then we have the MCU, the Fox stuff, I should say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, and I had known about him having bone claws, but not kind of the canonical thing of it. And I always thought, they always made it seem like in the cartoon that the claws were added when they added the adamantium, right?
That's okay.
And hold on, I want
right.
you to clarify, but I want to go where what I found. And what I found was that basically that kind of was the idea, and then they kind of retconned it to where it wasn't, and that they were just there.
One of the best scenes in a comic ever, and it was
Mhm.
absolutely shocking, is he gets the adamantium pulled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the next issue, but the issue after. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta get back to training, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he goes in the danger room and he's fighting, and just instinctually pops the claws, and the bone ones pop out. And it's this amazing fucking panel with him sitting on, he's on his knees with these fucking bone claws out of his hands, and he's just looking at him. Blood's just pouring out of his fucking knuckles because the adamantium sheathing isn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like him just fucking, and it's as a child reading that was shocking. It's like they had to have come up with the idea of it almost at the same time they came up with removing the adamantium. All right, so we're gonna pull the adamantium out of him. What's that mean? Well, fuck. What if he had bone claws?
Right.
It's a brilliant idea in and of itself, because leading up to that, we had all just thought it was part of the Weapon X program.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because actually, and this just popped in when you were saying that, it almost even makes sense. We're seeing, I always play to the point of, in the cartoon when we do the Weapon X flashbacks, and the claws first come out, he's scratching his hands, what's going on, you know what I mean? He doesn't know, but at the same time, he also really doesn't have memory of that.
That's exactly the thing. He has it's not the first time he's used the bone claws in his lifetime,
right?
But you have to understand,
but he doesn't remember.
Point in the X-Men history, yeah, he's had his mind wiped
Right.
7 times.
Yeah. Yep.
So he has
So,
no concept that he has
yep.
this.
Yep. So he could even have, in his mind, made it to where they installed these weapons in him, where he's had them his
Well,
whole life. He just didn't remember.
that was his thought. Was
Yeah.
in the comic, like I have to go train because I don't have claws anymore, and I have to figure out how to fight. I have to figure out how to fight again. And he got them fucking claws. I'll tell you this, bone claws aren't nearly as good as fucking adamantium.
I would say no. So, do you think? I guess this all rounds out to the final question of the show, Mike. Do you think we get bone claws in the cartoon?
100%. I think we get
recreate
bone
that
claws.
panel.
I think we get bone claws at the end of episode 1.
Oh, dude, I can't wait. That's supposed to come out sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah. I think we get, and if not episode 1, it'll be episode 2. It's going to be like one of those killer. I'll tell you, this show is real good at like having like, it's got it like every episode has like 3 moments where you're like, oh fuck. And
Right.
it's like a medium one at the beginning where you're like, oh fuck. And then there's one like in the middle somewhere where you're like, oh fuck, a giant sentinel is fucking killing everything. What the fuck? And then you're like, oh, what the fuck? Yeah, but it's fucking death spoilers. Holy fucking like, and it's
do we get
every
him back?
episode. I think the presence of time travel.
Yep, I agree.
Being so heavily involved in
next
this,
season. Yep.
and obviously next season is definitely going to mean that he comes back.
Yep. I agree. And
It's let's be real. At the end of the day, this is a fucking children's show. It's made for adults. Don't get me wrong. This show was made for you and me, right? It was made for like 4 dudes that watched this when we were like 11. But at the end of the day, it's a fucking children's show, right?
Yep, I agree.
So
it's fun, and I'll say, if anything, as amazing as X-Men '97 is, it's just helped me get even more hype for Wolverine and Deadpool, and I can't wait.
It
cannot wait.
Convinced me to get a Marvel Unlimited subscription, and
Nice.
I'm going back and reading all this like Fatal Attractions and all these like storylines that this shit's being pulled from.
That's
just because,
amazing.
Like yeah, man, I don't have kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you should. I'm gonna get you to send me some should reads so I can see if I can get them on my library app.
I would check for Fatal Attractions. Just
Okay.
right. That's the claws getting pulled.
Okay.
But that'll take some backstory. Not really. You could pick up Fatal Attractions and read that. Yeah, you'd be all right with. Yeah.
Nice.
The shit that'll take backstories is all the Cable shit. Like once you want to start like Cable and Apocalypse and Mr. Sinister, there's like that story got seeded over a period of years before it really culminated. But yeah, Fatal Attractions, man, that's an easy one to pick up and read.
I like it.
Ages
all right,
of
Mike.
Apocalypse is an easy one to pick up and read too.
Okay. I will have to see what I can fit into my newfound schedule as we fit recording in the newfound schedules. And Mike, that's all I got to say. Anything else you want to say to these fine people before we go?
I'm seeing Cold and Orgy tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, isn't that like?
Are you wearing giant jeans and spiking your hair? Because you should.
No, I'm not doing that at all. Although I will say at Sonic Temple, the amount of, I'm going to use the term children. They probably would use the term adult. Saw a lot of children wearing Jinkos. I saw a lot of kids dressed like I was dressed in the 90s. And I'm going to be real, man.
We look stupid.
We were the worst group of fucking metal kids ever.
I never dressed like that.
Like other than the like, look, I'm gonna be real. The 80s spandex people were the worst.
Yeah.
We were the second worst, man. It was like our metal was like, other than 80s hair metal, like the pussiest genre of metal. ever. And I
would
love new
disagree,
metal.
but
I love new metal. I'm gonna sit here and say I love new metal. Love it. But it is the pussiest genre of metal ever. um uh and on top of that, our clothes were stupid. They don't look cool at
no,
all.
they
Like look
don't.
at them like early like those late 70s like Sabbath, like metal
Hmm.
guys, like the thrash guys, like you look at a picture of Metallica from like 1983 and they're all just wearing tight denim and they look cool as fuck, right?
Hmm.
And you could like literally do that with any era of metal except spandex in the new metal era. We just look
Yep.
stupid as fuck, man.
Yep.
Every other era of metal looks badass.
Let's be
And
real. Korn had it right when they wore the Adidas shit, and we fucked it up.
we just looked dumb. What the fuck are we doing wearing 42-inch wide fucking pant legs? I mean, come on. Ball chain necklaces and shit. Like,
Good shit.
just
Good
the
shit.
worst. I had 4 Yankee hats, man. What was I doing?
I know. Guys,
I don't even
I
like it.
I say it every week. It's been real. It's been fun. We will catch you next time.
You guys are beautiful. We love you. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us in the Kayfabe Zone. New episodes of Drive By are available every Saturday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and everywhere podcasts can be found. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/drivebypod and follow us on Twitter at drivebypod. This has been a presentation of the Near Fall Network.